Talking about definitions is pretty abstract, so let's look at a few examples to help make it more real for us. So this is the Graphic Standards Manual for the New York City Transit Authority, and this has been around for a long time, and this is really the Bible of graphic standards manuals. Part of the reason that I think that the New York City Transit Authority has lasted so long is because, and the standards of it, is because this manual is written so well, because this design system is written so well. So let's take a look at the guts of this. You'll see here that one part of this manual is just the parts. So you'll see that they have everything from how each letter is supposed to be specified in here. So here's how you print a double A, here's how you print a B, here's how you print a double C, and it's in meticulous detail. It's every single letter of the alphabet to show you if there was a subway line that had these letters, this is how you would print it. So they spare no expense in making sure that you have specifications for every single thing that you might want to use, all the letters of the alphabet. It's not like they're showing you one and then they're saying, yeah, just do all the rest of them like that. They're going into painstaking detail to kind of show you that stuff. So this book is full of all of the different parts, but it's not just the parts. It's also full of examples of how to use things and guidance on how to use those things. So let me show you an example of that. This page here is a page about temporary signs. And this shows the people who are implementing this system how you can create a temporary sign. So there's guidance here that tells you what a temporary sign is. The nature of the temporary sign requires that it'll be easy to produce, place, and remove. And then it has instructions for how to produce a temporary sign. And then it also shows examples of where to put that temporary sign, what it should look like, where it should go, and how it should actually function. And this is a great guide. This is great guidance for a design system. So this whole book, this whole manual is partially just the parts, partially the components themselves, but then partially the guidance. And the thoroughness of both the parts and the guidance is, I think, what has made this standard, this system, hold up for so long. Now, both of these books are really great. These are books that were written in the late 70s. About architecture, and Christopher Alexander basically talks about in these books, how can you approach building architecture in a way that is systematic and, like the cover of the book says, a timeless way of building. And this is kind of a part one and part two, and the pattern language side of it is how do you actually implement those things, and then this is kind of the theory of it. So it's almost like a design system in two parts, where part of it is the parts and then part of it is the actual guidance on those parts. And there's a lot of great theory and kind of philosophy as to how to build architecture in this way, a lot of which applies to how we might build digital products today. If you're looking for something more modern, this is a fantastic book by Alla Kolmatova. It's called Design Systems, and it's about how to build a modern design system. So all of the things that we were talking about in terms of theory and in terms of practice and in terms of parts, Alla compiles in this book and talks about how to actually use design systems and make design systems and maintain them. There's a fantastic reference for anybody that wants to learn more about this topic. Now, this is a bit of a non-traditional example here. Most of the things that we've looked at are actually manuals, and this book is called Designed by Apple in California, and it's a little bit different than some of the other examples. If I look through this book, you'll see that there aren't a lot of words. There's really just photos. And these photos, these are beautiful photos that kind of document what Apple products actually look like. Now, you could call this a photography book more than it is a design system, but it does have a little bit of a reference for design system. So what I mean by that is there are a few hundred pages in here. And as you just flip through this book, just page by page, looking at hardware, looking at all the different devices that they make, and just kind of getting and seeing them from different angles. What you'll find here is that you could leaf through the couple hundred pages of this book, and at the end of the book, even though there hasn't been any words, you can understand how Apple builds their products. You could probably conclude something at the end that says, here are the principles that are important to Apple's work. And I think that's the job of a good design system too, is to be able to look through all the things and be able to conclude, okay, this is what's important to this organization about how products are built. And so even though this is a little bit of a non-traditional example, I think it still makes a good point as to the job of what a design system should do. So one of the things that I want to point out through this is that not all design systems have to look the same. The outcome is what's important, not the actual format of it. So this is one example of a design system that Apple might have. They also have another that's maybe a little bit more popular than this book. It's called the Apple HIG, the Human Interface Guidelines, and that's for anybody who wants to build an iPhone app. So when we look at that HIG and we look at this, it's two examples of design systems from the same company. So that's not to say that you can only have one design system. You can have two if they apply in different ways, or if you want to show your products in different ways. So there are also digital versions of design systems, not just in books. And so let's look at a couple of the most popular ones. Material design is one that is created by Google. And lots of people use material design for non-Google products, but also Google uses them for Google products. So what you'll see here is that it's a unified interface for Android apps, for apps that are by Google, for things like Gmail and Google Maps, but also some of their subsidiaries like YouTube. And so this is a design system that has all the stuff that we've been talking about. It's got components and it's got guidance. So let's click around here. If we go to the Develop tab, for developers, it's got all the components that we actually need, and it's distributed by platform. So we've got Android, iOS, web, and Flutter. So if I click into the web portion here, what you'll see is I can get to the components and I can get to the documentation itself. So components gives me this whole list of things, and let's just click into one. So if I wanted to use a button as part of material design, it gives me an example for what this is. And I can scroll down and it gives me all of the guidance as to how to install this thing and how to use it. And even more than that, this whole system gives me guidance on how to use these things from a philosophical standpoint. So it's got all the technical work as well as the philosophical work. And all of this is in one place. And this is pretty common with design systems, is being able to see sort of a list of all the components, being able to see the component here in action, a live version of it, and then some guidance on how to use it and when to use it. The same thing is true kind of on the design end for material, is that this is kind of the coding end, but the design end introduces things like principles. So let's look at the color principles for material design, for example. What this shows is all the color palettes that come with material and how you might use them. So lots of robust color palettes here, all the way from shades 50 to 900, that show you the primary and the secondary colors, as well as all the variants and the tints and the hues. And this also comes with principles. So they talk about legibility as a principle, and expressiveness as a principle, and hierarchy as a principle. So again, you see these combinations. So it's not just the components and it's not just the guidance. It's all of those things kind of together in context. If we jump over to another example, this is Salesforce's design system, and this is called the Lightning design system. So see here some kind of a similar approach where they have guidelines and they also have components, but they also have specific details about things like accessibility and tokens and icons. So if we go in to look at the components themselves, you'll see here again kind of the same thing. Here's a list of all of the components that come with this system. If I go into buttons here, you'll see that I get all the variants. So I've got all the button base, the neutral, the brand, the outline brand, the destructive, and the success. And again, right below is just the code to be able to use that. So from a design standpoint, here's how the thing will look. From a development standpoint, here's the code that I need to implement this. And then again, right in context is the guidance. So again, here's an accessibility rule of thumb for the button. I don't have to go somewhere else to actually see it. It's in context of the component itself. The last example that we'll look at here is Polaris by Shopify, and this is a design system. And so it's got, again, the same things that Material and Lightning have, but in a slightly different way. And I want to point out something specific about this. So as we look into the components of Shopify, Shopify is an e-commerce platform. And what's really great about their design system, Polaris, is that they actually show things that are specific to their users and to their customers. So it's not just, here's a button to use because it's a button and people need to use buttons, but they actually show things in relation to merchants and in relation to purchasers. So as an example, I'm going to go into actions here, and I'll go into an action list. And this action list gives me some guidance, same thing that we saw in Material and in Lightning, where we've got the component in action. I get to see how it works, and I get the code to be able to implement that. But what they talk about here that is specific to them, if I read this guidance here, is an action list renders a list of actions or selectable options. That's universal, that's generic. But then they get more specific. This component is usually placed inside a popover container to create a drop-down menu to let merchants select from a list of options. So again, this is really specific to how they want merchants to be able to use these components. And that's one of the things I love most about this Polaris system, is that it's not just anybody who wants to use a list, here's how you use a list. It's specifically designed for merchants and for purchasers.